It all began with a plate of spaghetti and a single moment of hate. Inside the bustling dining room of La Roma, a popular Italian restaurant in downtown Atlanta, the air buzzed with conversation and the clatter of silverware. Among the crowd sat a sharply dressed black man, Elijah Carter, quietly enjoying his meal alone. His demeanor was calm, almost regal. There was something about his presence that made people glance twice, even if they didn't understand why. 3 tables over, Sarah Whitman scowled into her wine glass. Blonde, impeccably dressed, and always ready with a sharp word, she was known in her social circles for her polished exterior and her poisonous tongue. Her husband, Greg, sat next to her, uncomfortable and distracted, checking his phone repeatedly. He was waiting for someone. Sarah noticed. "Greg," she snapped, "can you put your phone down for one dinner? You're acting like you're waiting for God himself." Greg hesitated. "It's kind of important. I might meet someone tonight, he's coming in soon." Sarah rolled her eyes and took another sip. That's when Elijah stood up from his table, presumably done with his meal, and politely asked the waitress for the check. As he passed by, Sarah's eyes narrowed on him. She didn't know him, but something in her twisted, resentment. Disgust. A mix of both, fed by years of internalized prejudice and a worldview she'd never challenged. "Excuse me," she suddenly said loud enough for the tables around them to hear, her voice laced with venom. "Are you lost? Or do you just like sitting in places you don't belong?" The room froze. Elijah paused but said nothing. He'd been here before, too many times. He knew what was behind the words, the looks, the tone. Sarah wasn't done. "Maybe you should try the diner down the street," she sneered, grabbing the untouched plate of spaghetti in front of her. "This is a little too upscale for some people." Before Greg could stop her, she flung the plate at Elijah. Red sauce splattered across his tailored suit. Gasps erupted from every table. Greg stood up so fast his chair toppled backward. "Elijah, oh my God, I'm so sorry." Greg rushed forward, grabbing napkins, his face pale with horror. Sarah's smirk faltered. Elijah wiped his face slowly and looked her dead in the eyes. "So this is the kind of woman you married, Greg?" Sarah blinked. "Wait, what?" Greg turned to her, trembling with anger. "Sarah, this is Elijah Carter, CEO of Carter Tech. He owns the company I work for. He's my boss. My boss's boss. He's the man I've been trying to impress for months." Sarah's lips parted, but no sound came out. Her world tilted. The fallout was immediate. Word spread like wildfire. Someone had captured the incident on video. Within hours, it was trending online, #SpaghettiScandal. Public outrage poured in. Greg was placed on temporary leave while HR reviewed the situation. He wasn't being punished, but he was caught in the collateral damage. Sarah tried to apologize. She sent flowers, letters, even recorded a tearful video that somehow still sounded more like a justification than remorse. But Elijah didn't respond. Privately, Elijah was torn. He dealt with racism his entire life, but rarely this blatant, this humiliating. And yet, what haunted him more was Greg, his employee, his mentee, someone he'd admired for his sharp mind and quiet integrity. Greg wasn't a bad man, but he had married someone whose views were poisonous. And that couldn't be ignored. Greg showed up at Elijah's office weeks later, thinner, haggard, eyes sunken from lack of sleep. "I just need 5 minutes," he said. Elijah gestured for him to sit. "I didn't know she was like that," Greg started. "Maybe that makes me blind or naive or both. But I swear to you, Elijah, I never agreed with that kind of hate. I've always respected you. Admired you. What she did was disgusting. And if it costs me everything, I'll accept that." Elijah was quiet for a long moment. "Greg," he said finally, "you say you didn't know. But the truth is, racism doesn't need a uniform. It lives in silence. In the dinners where we ignore the jokes. In the family conversations we walk away from. In the people we love and never challenge." Greg nodded, swallowing hard. "I know that now." "I believe you," Elijah said. But change doesn't come from words. It comes from what you do next. Sarah and Greg eventually separated. Not in a blaze of drama, but quietly, painfully, like a balloon slowly losing air. Greg moved into a small apartment and started therapy. He began volunteering with a local organization that taught conflict resolution and anti-racism education to high schoolers. He didn't post about it online. He didn't want points. He wanted to learn. Elijah continued to lead Carter Tech with grace and strength, but he, too, began speaking more publicly. He told his story, not to shame, but to teach. At colleges, corporate events, even online webinars. He talked about the incident, yes, but more importantly, he talked about the deeper illness beneath it, the way prejudice hides in plain sight. Months later, Greg sat in the front row of one of Elijah's talks. Their eyes met. No words were exchanged. But Elijah gave a small nod. It was enough. Final message. This story isn't just about a racist woman. It's about how we respond to hate. About the choices we make when the masks fall off. About accountability, not just for our actions, but for our silence. Because real change doesn't come when we get caught. It comes when we decide, never again. Not on my watch. And that decision. That power. It belongs to each of us.